Chapter 32. Chu Luiwei lifted the curtain and got off the carriage with Chu Ning. It was rare for Rong Xiu to be dazed. Then he slowly curved his lips and laughed softly. She was indeed the first person to say that he was petty. Yan Qing was waiting respectfully outside the carriage. Hearing his master's rare laughter, he was shocked. What's going on? Although master looked gentle, in fact, he did not show his emotions on his face. He rarely smiled like this. Just now, what did he do? Did his master really have feelings for that person from the Chu family? Let's go back. Rong Xiu's voice was filled with joy. Yes. Yan Qing immediately drove the carriage forward. The Prince Li's mansion was not far from the Chu family. It only took them an hour to reach the mansion. Rong Xiu returned to his residence. Yuemo, another bodyguard who had been waiting for a long time, immediately came forward and said respectfully, "Your Highness, everything has been arranged." Rong Xiu nodded, walked to the table and put something down. Yuemo took a look and was shocked. It was a teacup. The design was elegant and the carving was exquisite. There was a faint golden circle around it. This was obviously something used in the palace. But the next moment, Yuemo saw the teacup shatter silently. In the blink of an eye, it turned into powder. Yuemo's heart skipped a beat. He did not dare to ask again. He could only look at Yan Qing for help. Master rarely gets angry like this. What's going on? But his master did not look angry. He even seemed to be in a good mood. Yan Qing looked down and did not say anything. What should he say? Should he say that it was because of that person from the Chu family? Rong Xiu took off his cloak. Only then did Yuemo notice that there were traces of blood on his hand. He immediately cried out in shock. "Your Highness, you're injured." Didn't His Highness attend the Crown Prince's birthday banquet? How could he be injured? Rong Xiu looked down and saw that his hand was stained with blood. It was from her hand. It seemed that she did not wipe it clean. Her face and body were covered in blood. How could a handkerchief wipe them clean? Rong Xiu's eyes turned cold. What has Rong Zhen been doing recently? Yuemo didn't expect him to suddenly ask this question. After thinking for a moment, he immediately replied, "The fourth princess seems to want to change her contracted magical beast recently. She likes to go to the hunting ground." What an interesting interest. Rong Xiu was silent for a while. His slender fingers lightly knocked on the table twice as he lightly said, "Then let her have fun." His tone was calm, but Yuemo could hear a trace of cold, killing intent. Yuemo could not help but sigh inwardly. It was said that the fourth princess had a rude and unreasonable personality and had always been lawless. However, her master had always been too lazy to pay attention to such people. She didn't know what she had done to provoke her master's murderous intent. "Your Highness, do you want to take a bath and rest now?" The Rong Xiu's fingertips gently caressed it, as if there was a soft and warm touch. "Just tell them that this king has caught a cold today and is resting in bed. I won't see anyone." Yan Qing responded and immediately left. At the door, the Rong Xiu added another sentence. "If she comes, you must inform me immediately." Even though she was mentally prepared, Yan Qing was still shocked. She barely controlled her expression. "Yes, Your Highness." Yuemo tactfully left and quickly chased after Yan Qing after exiting the door. What's going on? Who is Master talking about just now? Yan Qing remained silent. After being chased by Yuemo for a long time, she finally said, "You'll know when she comes." Yuemo was confused. What on earth happened that night? That was not all that had happened that night. To a certain person, it was a night where even the night breeze was sweet. However, it was not so wonderful for others. After the banquet ended, First Elder and the rest hurried back to the Chu family. It was already very late at night, but Chu Xianmin did not return to her room to rest. Instead, she was repeatedly interrogated by First Elder and the rest. The doors and windows of the room were tightly shut. First Elder sat at the head of the table while Chu Yen and Lu Yao sat below. Chu Xianmin stood in the middle. The few people's gazes were like sharp knives that scraped across Chu Xianmin's body. "What Chu Luiwei said today, was it true?" asked First Elder in a deep voice. Chu Xianmin was angry and embarrassed. "Of course it's false. Why would I do such a thing? That be asterisk Keith is slandering me. Chu Yan's face was green the whole way. At this point, he could not hold it in anymore and slammed the table. You're still lying. If you didn't say it, how would Chu Luiwe know that the crown prince needs to light incense when he sleeps? Only close people would know about this kind of thing. Chu Xianmin was so frightened that she shivered and immediately felt guilty. I didn't. I really didn't. I just coincidentally went to see the crown prince once. He was resting and I smelled the incense. Looking at her expression, how could these people, who were used to seeing the wind and waves, not be able to see through her? Even if the two of them did not go to the last step, they probably did something that they should not have done. Chu Yan closed his eyes. Do you know that this matter will spread throughout the entire imperial city tomorrow? Your reputation will be completely ruined. Also, you actually slandered His Majesty in front of him like a shrew today. Why would the crown prince still choose you as his consort? Chu Xianmin was suddenly speechless. Lu Yao, who was at the side, suddenly spoke. Since the news can't be sealed, then don't. The few of them looked at her in shock. Lu Yao's eyes flickered. Now that this matter can't be cleared, let's just go with the flow. If everyone knows that you're already the crown prince's woman, then he will definitely not abandon you. Chu Xianmin felt wronged. But if that's the case, the position of the first consort is, you'll be the first consort sooner or later once you enter Crown Prince Mansion. What else is so important? Lu Yao did not seem to care. Your only chance now is to become stronger. As long as you're strong enough, you can shut everyone's mouths. The Academy's assessment is coming soon. You must get first place, understand? Chu Xianmin bit her lip. Now this was the only way. Got it. After Chu Luiwe went back, she took a hot shower and changed into a clean set of clothes before she felt more comfortable. Just as she was tidying her clothes, the handkerchief suddenly fell to the ground. She picked up the handkerchief. The handkerchief, which was originally as white as snow, was now stained with blood. It looked terrible. Thinking of Rong Xiu's words, she snorted softly and drew water to wash the handkerchief clean again. Chapter 33. The next day, news of what happened at the Crown Prince's birthday banquet quickly spread throughout the imperial city. Everyone was talking about it. Too many things had happened that night, but the most talked about person was Chu Xianmin. She had been having an affair with the Crown Prince for a long time. They thought that she was a pure and innocent genius, but they did not expect her to be such a shameless person. Even though the Xianwu mainland respected the strong, they were still very conservative when it came to such matters. Chu Xianmin was still a girl and had not even reached marriageable age. Her reputation was completely ruined after such a thing was exposed. Rong Jin's annulment of his engagement with Chu Luiwe was within everyone's expectations, so they were more interested in Chu Xinmin's matter. Of course, many people were shocked when Chu Luiwe said that she wanted to enter Tianlu Academy. However, no one cared about it after the momentary shock. How could a good-for-nothing with a broken Yuan meridian enter Tianlu Academy? Everyone thought that she was dreaming. Some people even suspected that she was traumatized by the annulment of her engagement and that her brain was not normal. Most people's thoughts were still on the Crown Prince, Rong Jin. Now that the position of the Crown Princess was empty, and Chu Xianmin, who had always been the most competitive candidate, had such a scandal, it was impossible for her to become the Crown Princess. Hence, many noble ladies in the imperial city were tempted to make a move. Chu Luiwe woke up early in the morning and practiced in the yard as usual. She only stopped when she was completely exhausted. At this time, the sky was only slightly bright. Chu Ning's voice came from behind. Chu Luiwe turned around and saw Chu Ning standing in the yard, looking at her lovingly. She had already sensed that Chu Ning was here, so she was not surprised. Chu Ning had long been used to her crazy practice every day, but he had never stopped her. He knew that this was what she wanted to do, so he chose to support her silently. "Father, aren't you going to the shop today?" asked Chu Luiwe strangely. Her eyes quickly scanned Chu Ning's body and found that he was a little different today. He had changed into a navy blue robe, with a white belt around his waist. His hair was neatly tied up, and his beard had clearly been shaved. There was still a faint green stubble on his chin. Today's Chu Ning had clearly tidied herself up meticulously. She looked much younger. Most importantly, his expression was no longer as gloomy and dispirited as before. Instead, his eyes were bright and his entire person was in high spirits, as if he had been reborn. Chu Luiwei had already guessed something. Today, father has something important to do. Chu Ning looked calm, but there was a hint of excitement in her eyes. Chu Luiwei nodded. From the looks of it, Chu Ning was finally roused. In the future, father will definitely not let you suffer the grievances of the past. There are some debts that should be settled properly, Chu Ning said in a firm tone. In the past, his body was unable to protect you, but now that he had successfully broken through, he naturally could not sit still and wait for death. He lowered his voice and asked in a deep voice, You said that Chu Xianmin sent someone named Song Lian to kill you? Yes. Do you know him, father? Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. Chu Ning narrowed his eyes. I didn't know him before, but I did find out some things after some investigation. That Song Lian is a well-known hooligan. He's usually arrogant and despotic, and he does all sorts of evil. Many people in the imperial city have been bullied by him. He idles around every day and has nothing to do at all. He frequents all sorts of big casinos all year round. However, such a person has a lot of background. He has caused trouble a few times and even offended some aristocratic family's descendants, but nothing happened in the end. Chu Luiwen nodded in understanding. It seems like the person behind him is not Chu Xianmin but someone else. Chu Xianmin did not have such great capabilities. There must be someone else behind this. No wonder a mere stage 3 warrior could be so arrogant. It was obvious that someone was backing him. Have you found out who his real backer is, father? Chu Ning paused and shook his head regretfully. Not yet. He seems to be very wary of this and hides it very deeply. I'm afraid we have to investigate properly. Chu Luiwen nodded. There's no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. He has disappeared for a month now. The person behind him will definitely not sit back and do nothing. He will be exposed sooner or later. She thought for a while and asked, Father, do you know which casino he likes to go to the most? Chu Ning asked curiously. Feng Yun Casino. But why are you asking this? You can't take the risk alone. Father, don't worry. I'm just asking casually. I won't do anything rash. Chu Ning was relieved. He thought for a while and reminded, Oh, right. Prince Li has helped us a few times. We haven't thanked him properly. Seeing how grateful her father was to Rong Xiu, Chu Luiwei was speechless. If this continued, she did not know what her father would do. She hurriedly said, Father, you're right. Father, you're right. I'm planning to personally thank you today. The best thing to do was to return the things and minimize our interactions in the future. Chu Ning frowned. Today? But we don't have anything to thank him with right now. His Highness Prince Li is kind-hearted. Why would he care about this? Father, don't you think so? Chu Luiwei said with a smile. The gift is light, but the thought is heavy. His Highness Prince Li will definitely not mind. What do you think? Only then did Chu Ning feel relieved. That's good. Chu Luiwei blinked seriously. Your daughter will go now. Chu Luiwei left the residence without a hitch. Her engagement with the crown prince had been cancelled, but after this series of events, everyone in the Chu clan knew that Chu Luiwei was not to be trifled with. So their attitude towards her was much more polite. No one even asked her what she was going to do. They just let her go. Chu Luiwei walked in the direction of Prince Li's residence. She didn't hide her identity today. Her fair and beautiful face was recognized by many people on the road. They secretly pointed at her, but didn't dare to bully her like before. Chu Luiwei turned a blind eye to them, as if she didn't care at all. After walking for about a quarter of an hour, she walked to the bustling main road, and there were more people around her. She was walking when she suddenly heard a commotion in front of her. Then, a figure quickly rushed over. Chu Luiwei was about to avoid it when she suddenly sensed something. Her eyes narrowed, and her figure paused. The other party suddenly bumped into her. Catch the thief! A roar came from behind. Chu Luiyue looked back and saw that the person who bumped into her had disappeared quickly. The corner of her mouth twitched imperceptibly, and she immediately followed after him. The sun was setting. The last ray of light poured down, reflecting the slender figure lying on the bed by the window. Rong Xiu quietly flipped through a scroll in his hand. He was as noble as usual, but for some reason, there was a faint coldness between his eyebrows. Yan Qing said, "Your Highness, the residents received 23 invitations today, including those from the Crown Prince's residence. I have rejected all of them." Rong Xiu softly said, The atmosphere became even colder. Gradually, the sky became completely dark. Rong Xiu turned a page and asked indifferently, "No one came to visit today?" How could Yan Qing not know who he was asking? He couldn't help but complain inwardly, and his head hung lower. "Your Highness, no one." Pa. Chapter 34. Chu Luiyue chased after the person who bumped into her and left the downtown area very quickly. It wasn't until they reached a dead end that the man who was running away finally stopped. Chu Luiyue crossed her arms. "Give me back my things." The man turned around and looked at her fiercely. He sneered and weighed the pouch that he had snatched from Chu Luiyue. "If you want it, come and get it yourself." Chu Luiyue's gaze swept across the flat pouch and sighed. "Are you so sure that I have money on me?" The man's expression froze and he suddenly thought of something. He quickly tore open the pouch, but other than a white handkerchief, there was no money at all. A trace of anger flashed across his face, but it disappeared very quickly. He looked up at Chu Luiyue with a sinister smile. "You don't really think that I'm here for your money, do you?" As he said that, he suddenly pulled out a dagger from his waist. His killing intent was awe-inspiring. Chu Luiyue didn't panic at all and revealed a meaningful smile. The man was stunned for a moment before he suddenly reacted. There was no money in the pouch. Even if it was stolen, Chu Luiyue could just ignore it, but she still followed him. She followed him on purpose. "With your mediocre skills, it's too whimsical of you to think that you can steal something from me. But since you want me to come, I'll come." Chu Luiyue's words made the man's expression turn even uglier. "You're courting death." The man roared and the dagger in his hand quickly stabbed towards Chu Luiyue. Rank 4 warrior. The moment he made his move, Chu Luiyue quickly judged his strength. She squinted her eyes. It seemed that the mysterious disappearance of Song Lian and the other two had caused the mastermind to be wary of her. This time, they actually sent a rank 4 warrior to kill her. Chu Luiyue staggered her feet and quickly took half a step back. Her right leg bent slightly and with a tap of her toes, she suddenly exerted her strength. Her seemingly weak and slender body was actually filled with astonishing toughness and explosive power as she rushed out in an instant. Facing a rank 4 warrior, she actually chose to face him head-on. Chu Luiyue directly kicked the man's wrist. The man's hand quickly turned and he intended to use the dagger to pierce Chu Luiyue's leg. Clang. A crisp sound was heard. The man only felt a strong impact from Chu Luiyue's leg, causing his hand to go numb. His dagger slid out, leaving behind a string of dazzling sparks. What was going on? His Estes leg. Made. Before he could figure out why Luiyue had such a piece of equipment, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his wrist. The sharp weapon scraped across his wrist and instantly cut off a layer of flesh. Ah! He screamed in pain and quickly retreated. Looking down, his entire forearm was already dripping with blood. Chu Luiyue landed on the ground and saw the situation. She shook her head in dissatisfaction. It's still not sharp enough. She already knew that she was surrounded on all sides, so she was very careful with her words and actions. Her strength had not recovered yet, so she strengthened her combat power in other aspects. She had specially asked Chu Ning for the dagger hidden in the sole of her shoe. If it had been successful, this man's entire wrist should have been cut off. It was a pity that the material used to make the dagger was not good, so she could only make do with it. Seeing her leisurely look, the injured man was angry and annoyed. No matter what, he was still a rank 4 warrior, but he actually suffered a loss in the hands of a useless person like Chu Luiyue. The higher-ups had instructed him to think of a way to take down Chu Luiyue today. No matter what, he could not fail. Thinking of this, his eyes flashed and he sneered, "The rumored cowardly and incompetent Miss Chu is actually such a ruthless person. Unfortunately, no matter how many tricks you have, it's all futile in front of true strength." He shouted and threw the dagger out. His hands crossed in front of him and he began to circulate the force in his body. Then, a green wind blade quickly condensed around his body. An extremely oppressive aura surged out from his body. The narrow alley became even more cramped because of the appearance of this aura. "Clear wind slash." The man shouted and the green wind blade slashed towards Chu Luiyue. Chila. On the bluestone pavement, a clear and visible white scratch mark appeared. It extended straight towards Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue's hair flew up and her ears were filled with the whistling sound of the wind. The strong oppressive aura made her mind buzz and even her movements became much slower. Rank 4 warriors were the dividing line for cultivators. Although rank 3 warriors could absorb the heaven and earth force, it was only to strengthen their bodies and increase their physical strength. Only when a rank 4 warrior broke through would they be able to circulate the accumulated force in their body and unleash powerful attacks. No matter if it was the strength or speed of the attack, it was not something a rank 3 warrior could compare to. This clear wind slash had already closed in on Chu Luiyue's face in the blink of an eye. Chu Luiyue even felt a dull pain between her eyebrows. Her eyes were fixed on the green wind blade as her muscles tightened and she held her breath in anticipation. Previously, she was able to win against Song Lian and the rest with her useless body mainly because her eyesight and battle experience were extremely strong. The difference between a normal person and a rank 3 warrior could be made up for by relying on these. But a rank 4 warrior was different. The other party could circulate the force to attack and it was difficult for her to win. Although her Yuan meridian had recovered, she had not accumulated much force and could not compete with the other party in this aspect. She could only resort to trickery. Swish. The green wind blade flew over quickly. Chu Luiyue's waist suddenly leaned back. Her body was almost parallel to the ground. In the next moment, she supported herself with one hand on the ground and borrowed the force to flip over and narrowly avoided the attack. Kacha! The green wind blade slammed into the ground behind her, smashing open a crack. "You know how to dodge." The man was surprised when he saw this and the murderous intent in his eyes intensified. "No wonder Song Lian and the rest also fell into your hands." A dark light flashed across Chu Luiyue's eyes. As expected, she had not gone to find them and the other party had already sent himself to her door. Her gaze swept past the man quickly. "Looks like your master is Song Lian's true backer." The man was stunned and laughed as if he had heard a joke. "You're smart. Unfortunately, the smarter you are, the more you have to die." Chu Luiyue was about to say a few more words when she suddenly felt a chill behind her head. She didn't even think about it as she flew forward. Bang! The place where she was previously standing exploded into a deep pit. The strong aftershock caused the blood in her chest to churn. She immediately looked up and saw that the man who shouted, "Catch the thief," was already blocking the entrance of the alley. The most important thing was that he was also a rank 4 warrior. Die! The two of them looked at each other and attacked Chu Luiyue at the same time. Chapter 35. Chu Luiyue's hand quietly reached for her sleeve. She definitely wasn't a match for 2 stage 4 warriors attacking her from the front and back. But this didn't mean that she had no other way to deal with them. However, at this moment, a white shadow suddenly rushed out from the side. Accompanied by an oppressive roar, a powerful force instantly erupted. Boom, boom, boom. The two men's attacks collapsed before they could reach Chu Luiyue. And the tyrannical aftermath even backfired on the two men. The two men couldn't dodge in time and didn't even see who it was. They felt a powerful force directly crushing them and fell to the ground. Their chests shook and they spat out blood. His originally arrogant attitude immediately became much more dispirited. "Who is it?" The two men were shocked and furious as they hurriedly looked up. However, when they looked, they were all stunned on the spot. This was because the one that had suddenly charged out was actually a muscular white lion. Its fur was snow-white, and its icy blue eyes flickered with a cold luster. Its entire body exuded a powerful aura that couldn't be violated. Just now, it just casually swung its claws and easily dissolved the attacks of the two Stage 4 warriors. 7th grade Heavenly Lion. Upon seeing who it was, the two men couldn't help but exclaim, and a trace of panic appeared on their faces. Why would this high-level fiend that only existed in legends suddenly appear here? In the entire country Yaochen, there were only a few 7th grade fiends, and this Heavenly Lion was unheard of. But now, it actually appeared in the imperial city. Chu Luiyue was also very surprised. Shue Shue? Why are you here? It appeared so timely. Could it have been following her all this time? But she didn't notice it at all previously. It seemed like she had to strengthen her cultivation for this body. After hearing Chu Luiyue's words, the corners of the two men's eyes twitched violently. Such a familiar tone. Chu Luiyue actually knew this 7th grade Heavenly Lion long ago. It was obvious that she was here to help her. It would be fine if other helpers came, but the two of them weren't considered weak when they joined forces. But now, standing in front of them was a genuine 7th grade Heavenly Lion. As long as it raised its claws, it could easily take their lives. What exactly was going on with Chu Luiyue? She actually had such a backer behind her. After hearing Chu Luiyue's words, Shue Shue, who was originally filled with murderous intent, instantly retracted its cold aura and lowered its head to rub against Chu Luiyue's waist. A low "s" came out from its throat as though it was acting coquettish. Chu Luiyue stroked its soft and fluffy fur and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. With Shue's appearance, Shue's and Chu Luiyue's back. Shue, as Shue's. He sent you here? Asked Chu Luiyue as her eyes darted around. Shue, esestis backest, esestis. Est. Shue Shue had always had a strong desire to live. Chu Luiyue burst out laughing. Looking at Shue Shue's awkward expression, she could roughly guess what Shue Shue was thinking. Both the master and servant were probably involved in this matter. This Rong Xiu. What exactly is he thinking? This question quickly flashed through Chu Luiyue's mind, but he didn't show it on his face. Instead, he looked at the two people again. Right now, he had to solve the most important problem first. The two of them looked at each other and saw the panic in each other's eyes. Now that Chu Luiyue had the help of the 7th stage Heavenly Lion, it was no longer something they could deal with. Go! Without hesitation, the two of them got up and fled in two different directions. Chu Luiyue smirked. Shue Shue snorted, and then her figure suddenly vanished. In the next moment, it appeared in front of one of the men. It quickly raised its claws and slapped the man's chest. His clothes were instantly torn apart, and blood splattered everywhere as he flew out. Bang! He was heavily smashed onto the ground by the powerful impact. A long trail of blood was drawn out. It only stopped when he hit the wall. The other man's fate wasn't any better. He didn't even manage to escape out of the alley before he was thrown out by Shue Shue. He crashed beside the first man. How strong was the 7th stage Heavenly Lion? These two 4th stage warriors didn't even have the chance to struggle and escape in Shue Shue's hands. They were defeated. In a blink of an eye, the situation was reversed. Chu Luiyue walked in front of the two men and looked down at them. Speak, who is your master? The two men were on the verge of death, but they refused to say a word. Chu Luiyue crossed her arms and smiled faintly. Unwilling to say? Then why don't I guess? You are the Crown Prince's men. The two men were shocked and looked at her subconsciously. But in the next moment, they realized something and hurriedly looked away. However, this reaction was enough. Song Lian's real background is Song Yuan, right? What are you talking about? We don't understand. The two men weren't dumb, and they forcefully denied it. Chu Luiyue didn't care at all. This matter was actually very easy to guess. There were only a few people who hated her and wanted her to die completely outside. There were even fewer people who could send a stage 4 warrior to deal with her. To Rong Jin, killing her 10 times wasn't enough to appease his hatred due to the new and old grudges. It was a pity that this person wasn't very smart. Back then, he lost Song Lian, but he didn't know how to be more careful and sent 2 people to kill her so carelessly. It doesn't matter if you don't admit it. Chu Luiwei didn't even care about the two of them as she turned to look at Xue Xue. Xue Xue, I need to trouble you with something. Take these two away. Xue Xue looked at her in confusion. If they want to kill me, can't they just kill me? Chu Luiwei suddenly turned around and picked up the pouch that the man threw away, and her eyes curved. Let's go. The room was so quiet that it was almost suffocating. Yanqing lowered his head and felt that the air around his master was extremely cold, as if it could freeze people to death. His master had always been expressionless and rarely showed any emotions. But now, his master was like this just because that person didn't come on time. Master, Big Chu Missy is here. At this moment, Yumo's voice suddenly came from outside the door. Almost instantly, Yanqing felt a slight change in his master's aura. He quickly looked up and indeed saw that his master was looking outside the door. Looking out from the half-open door, he could vaguely see a blurry and slender silhouette behind Yumo in the dark night. Master, I'll invite Big Chu Missy in now, said Yanqing happily, as if a huge burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Rong Xiu's eyes, which were as deep as the starry night, flashed slightly. After a moment, he looked serious, adjusted his clothes, and picked up the book again. Chapter 36. He won't see anyone. Chu Luiwei heard this clearly. She immediately stopped in her tracks and raised her eyebrows. Yumo was also stunned when he heard this. He won't see anyone? But the master had clearly said that he would not see anyone else. Only First Miss Chu was to be reported to him immediately. That was why he dared to bring her in directly. Why did master say that he wouldn't see her? He gave Yanqing a look. What's going on? Yanqing also felt bitter. How would I know? He saw with his own eyes that master had waited for First Miss Chu the entire day. It was impossible for him not to see her. Wasn't he still angry that First Miss Chu didn't come? Now that she finally came, why wasn't master happy? Instead, he didn't even want to see her. Master, First Miss Chu. Rong Xiu looked up and quietly glanced at Yanqing. Yanqing immediately swallowed the words in his throat. He obediently lowered his head again and stood aside obediently. Rong Xiu retracted his gaze and turned a page. The night wind blew. He clenched his fist and coughed a few times. However, that pair of eyes never looked at Chu Luiwei from the start to the end. Chu Luiwei didn't delay and looked at Yumo. Since your master isn't feeling well, I won't disturb him. Please pass on this item and thank your master for his help on my behalf. As she spoke, she handed over the handkerchief in her pouch. Yumo's eyelids twitched when he saw the handkerchief. Isn't this master's personal handkerchief? Usually, master treasures this handkerchief very much and almost never leaves his side. But why is it with Chu Luiwei now? He didn't enter the palace that day and naturally didn't know the inside story. Master was actually willing to give this to Chu Luiwei. First Miss Chu, this. Yumo hesitated and wanted to take it, but suddenly felt cold all over. He shuddered and immediately refused with righteous indignation. First Miss Chu, this belongs to master. It's better that you give it to him personally. Chu Luiwei, isn't it just a handkerchief? Why did he make it so grand? She also wanted to give it to him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come. But now that Rong Xiu said that he didn't want to see him, what could she do? She looked in that direction again. Through the half-open door, she could see the tall figure reclining on the bed. The warm light outlined his peerless side profile, as if it had been meticulously carved by the heavens, perfect and flawless. His eyes drooped slightly and his thin lips pursed slightly. Rong Xiu was angry? Why was he angry? After thinking for a while, Chu Luiwei still couldn't understand what he was thinking. Thus, she decided not to dwell on it and directly looked at Rong Xiu. Es giftis. Prince, T-test owe you anything. Thank you for your help the previous few times, but I don't like owing favors. Besides, our paths are different. To avoid trouble, let's try not to interact with each other. Then, she didn't look at Rong Xiu's reaction and wanted to shove the handkerchief to Yumo. Rong Xiu chuckled silently. I really don't know what to do with this person. He finally looked up, and his gaze landed on Chu Luiwei, surrounding her invisibly. No, you still owe me 2 favors today. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. First, Xue Xue saved you. His tone was as gentle and light as usual, but it was colder than the moonlight. Second, the person who killed you today wasn't the Crown Prince's man. Chu Liuyue's eyes turned cold. On this day, the imperial city seemed peaceful, but it was turbulent in the dark. Crown Prince Mansion. Study room. Only Rong Jin and another gray-robed elder were in the room. Are you sure that a 7th-grade fiend appeared in the imperial city? But there seems to be no news. Rong Jin asked suspiciously. That 7th-grade fiend only appeared for a short while. Normal people can't detect it, but I've already checked. There are indeed traces of a 7th-grade fiend fighting in 8 Corners Alley in the northwest of the imperial city. The elder stroked his beard with certainty. Besides, I'm sure that it's not just any fiend that exists in the imperial city. It's definitely new. Also, there's a high chance that it has an owner. Rong Jin knitted his brows tightly. But there are only a handful of people in the imperial city who can tame a 7th-grade fiend. Who could it be? The elder shook his head. Don't underestimate anyone in the imperial city. The other party isn't easy to deal with since they have a 7th-grade fiend. If the other party is coming for you, you have to be even more careful. The elder shook his head. Even though you're the crown prince now, there are still many people coveting that position. Your marriage agreement with Chu Luiyue is too ugly, and His Majesty is very unhappy with you. You can't create any more trouble at this time. At the mention of this, Rong Jin was furious. It's all Chu Liuyue's fault. She's just a good-for-nothing. There's nothing to be afraid of. Keep a low profile during this period of time and wait for the storm to blow over. The most important thing is to increase your abilities and let His Majesty see your abilities. Rong Jin took a deep breath and nodded. You're right. I'll remember your teachings. This year is your last year at Tianlu Academy. You have to grab that opportunity. Do you understand? But the news of a 7th-grade fiend appearing in the imperial city spread like wildfire and quickly spread among the aristocratic families. Rong Jin naturally knew about it as well. This made her eager to give it a try. The fiends from before were not of high levels. Now that a rare 7th-grade fiend had finally appeared, she definitely had to go and take a look. If she could capture it and make it her fiend, how awesome would that be? Hence, she also started to send people to investigate the 7th-grade fiend's tracks. It was as if the incident of Chu Liuyue being hunted down had never happened. Even the disappearance of the 2 people did not cause any commotion. Under this seemingly peaceful situation, Chu Liuyue finally received news from Tianlu Academy. Tianlu Academy agreed to His Majesty's request and gave Chu Liuyue a special opportunity to take the entrance exam. As long as she passed the exam, she could enter Tianlu Academy and become one of them. The 10th of August was Chu Liuyue's 14th birthday. It was also the day that Chu Liuyue went to Tianlu Academy for the entrance exam. Chu Ning had already personally made longevity noodles for her. In her previous life, every birthday of hers was extremely grand. Countless people celebrated it, and a long list of all kinds of gifts could be made. Although Chu Ning was the only one accompanying her now, this bowl of longevity noodles made her feel even more warm and fulfilled. Chu Liuyue finished the noodles, packed up, and headed to Tianlu Academy. Chu Ning wanted to follow her, but she rejected him. She knew that Chu Ning had been busy with some things recently. In her opinion, entering the academy was very simple. There was no need for so many people to accompany her. However, when Chu Liuyue arrived at Tianlu Academy's entrance, she realized that there were already many people waiting there. When Chu Liuyue's figure appeared, she immediately attracted the attention of countless people. Chu Liuyue understood. These people were obviously here to see a joke. A middle-aged man stood in front of Tianlu Academy's entrance with a stern expression. He looked at Chu Liuyue with faint impatience in his eyes. Chapter 37. Chu Liuyue quickly scanned his surroundings. The corners of his lips curled up slightly as he revealed a playful smile. Tianlu Academy was the top academy in the entire country Yaochen. Hence, its status was respected. Even in a place like the Imperial City, Where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, it still occupied a large area. The door made of lapis lazuli was simple and grand. A black crystal tablet stood in front of the door. It was shaped like a long sword that had fallen from the sky and pierced the ground. The words Tianlu Academy were engraved in gold on it. Just these alone were priceless, let alone the things inside the academy. In front of the door was a spacious square made of white jade. That was Tianlu Academy's territory. At the same time, it was the place they used to recruit students. However, Chu Luiwei was here to take the exam, and there was nothing in the square. There was only a small table in front of the middle-aged man. There were 3 black wooden boxes on the table. Clearly, they represented the 3 tests. It seemed like they did not intend to give Chu Luiwei a chance to take the exam in the square officially. Chu Luiwei bowed and asked warmly, "Thank you. Thank you, senior. Liu, may I know your name?" The middle-aged man was originally very displeased with Chu Luiwei. He was a good-for-nothing, yet he wanted to take the exam for Tianlu Academy. Was he dreaming? Since His Majesty had spoken, they could not reject him. However, who did not know that they had worked hard for nothing? He originally had something important to do today, but he was sent to take Chu Luiwei's exam at the last minute. He was depressed and did not treat Chu Luiwei well. He had even prepared the exam items hastily. Seeing how polite Chu Luiwei was, he sneered in his heart. Without ability, everything else was in vain. It was useless to curry favor with him. Bai Qin. Chu Luiwei smiled and pointed at the square not far away. "Senior, Lu Yu heard that Tianlu Academy's exams are held in the square, but it doesn't seem to be open today. Can you make it convenient for us?" Bai Chen looked at her mockingly as if he had heard a joke. "Do you know that the reason why the other examinees have their exams in the public square is because there will be all sorts of fights during their exams? And the fluctuations produced by this would all be calmed by the array formation on the square. As for you, do you even need it?" When the surrounding people heard this, they burst into laughter. "Exactly. Did she even need it? Ha! Tianlu Academy only recruits the best geniuses. She doesn't even have a complete Yuan meridian, yet she wants to enter? This is really embarrassing. Can't you see that he doesn't want to talk to her? I'm only giving her a chance because of His Majesty. From now on, I'm afraid the imperial capital will have another joke. Ha!" Chu Luiwei didn't seem to hear these taunts. His expression didn't even change. She looked at Bai Chen and asked stubbornly, "Then, what will it take for you to open the square?" Bai Chen sized her up from head to toe and couldn't detect any origin power fluctuations from her body. He couldn't help but exclaim softly, "That's right." He couldn't help but exclaim, "You just need to open one of these 3 black wooden boxes." This black wooden box was made of special black spiritual sandalwood and was extremely heavy. According to the differences in the 3 exams, the black wooden box had different seals. Ordinary people couldn't open it at all. If the examinees wanted to get the exam questions, they had to open the black wooden box themselves. And this was the first stage of the exam. Chu Luiwei nodded and didn't say anything else. She took a step forward and directly reached for the black wooden box on the far left. Everyone's faces more or less revealed an excited expression as if they were waiting to see a joke. That slender and fair hand landed on the black wooden box. Bai Qin pursed his lips. "You overestimate yourself." Click. Suddenly, a faint sound could be heard. That black wooden box was easily opened by Chu Luiwei. In an instant, the air seemed to freeze. Bai Chen's expression froze. How could this be? Chu Luiwei had already picked up a piece of paper from the black wooden box. "You'll pass if you become a Stage 3 warrior." The requirement to become a Stage 3 warrior seemed simple, but Tianlu Academy only recruited students below the age of 20. To be able to become a Stage 3 warrior at such a young age was undoubtedly a genius. Bai Chen didn't have time to think about how Chu Luiwei opened the black wooden box. When he saw the exam question she chose, he instantly laughed out loud. Warrior exam. He looked down at Chu Luiwei from above. "You'll pass if you reach the Stage 3 warrior realm. I remember that you lack a Yuan meridian and can't even be considered a warrior, right?" The crowd immediately roared with laughter. To others there might be hope, but Chu Luiyue? She might not be able to do it in her lifetime. Some people even hissed, "Get lost. You're embarrassing yourself." Ha! Bai Chen shook his head and was about to keep the item. But Chu Luiyue suddenly said, "Senior Bai Chen, if my ability reaches the stage 3 warrior realm, will I pass?" What? Bai Chen suspected that he had heard wrongly. Chu Luiyue asked again, "If I can defeat a stage 3 warrior, will you say that I've won?" Bai Chen hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Of course. But, can you do it?" Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. "I'll give it a try." Bai Chen made up his mind and waved his long sleeves. "But I'll suppress my ability to a stage 3 warrior. If you can take 3 moves from me, you'll pass." Then he waved his long sleeves, and a slight buzzing sound came from the square. Then he suddenly raised his chi and leaped into the air. Like a soaring eagle, he flew over hundreds of feet in an instant and landed precisely in the middle of the square. Chu Luiyue walked over step by step and stood in front of Bai Chen. "Senior, please enlighten me." Bai Chen didn't think much of it. Without another word, he changed his palm into a fist and attacked Chu Luiyue. His speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Chu Luiyue. The tyrannical wind from his fist whistled as a terrifying force broke through the air. In the blink of an eye, his fist was only an arm's length away from Chu Luiyue. By suppressing his ability to a stage 3 warrior realm, he didn't need to use any martial techniques. He could just use his physical strength to crush Chu Luiyue. With this punch, everything would end. Chu Luiyue's eyes reflected the reflection of the iron fist that was flying towards her. She stood there with her back straight, and in the eyes of outsiders, she seemed to have been scared silly. In Bai Chen's eyes, it was the same. But just when he thought that this attack would definitely hit, the girl in front of him suddenly disappeared. It was unknown how Chu Luiyue's figure moved, but she actually swiftly and skillfully avoided the punch. Bai Chen was instantly stunned when he saw the empty space in front of him. The next moment he suddenly felt a chill down his spine. A biting cold murderous intent enveloped him. Ha! He subconsciously circulated his force and turned around to attack. Thunder rush. Rumble. A faint blue fireball suddenly exploded. But there was no one there. Bai Chen was shocked and looked to his side in realization. As expected, he saw Chu Luiyue, who was unharmed. Chu Luiyue looked at him with a smile. "Senior Bai Chen, you seem to have used more than the power of a stage 3 warrior, right?" Chapter 38. Everyone looked at each other and took a while to react to what had just happened. When Bai Chen was testing Chu Luiyue, he actually used a skill that could only be used by a stage 3 warrior and above. This also meant that, as Chu Luiyue had said, he did not suppress his strength to that of a stage 3 warrior. What was going on? Bai Chen's face flushed red, and he felt extremely embarrassed. He originally thought that this move would be able to get rid of Chu Luiyue directly, but he did not expect that he did not control it well and ruin the test. It was really embarrassing to make such a low-level mistake in front of so many people. But what exactly happened just now? Bai Chen frowned and stared intently at Chu Luiyue. He was a stage 5 warrior and was considered one of the strongest warriors in the entire country Yaochen. He had tested many students in the past and had never made such a mistake. He remembered very clearly that he had sensed a frightening murderous intent from Chu Luiyue's body earlier, which was why he had instinctively used his true abilities. However, Chu Luiyue was a good-for-nothing. How could she cause such a strong pressure and threat to him? Bai Chen could not understand. He looked at Chu Luiyue with suspicion as though he wanted to burn a hole in her body. "Senior Bai Chen, you said that as long as I can withstand 3 moves from you, I will pass. However, your first move surpassed the strength of a stage 3 warrior. How will this be counted?" Chu Luiyue asked calmly, as though what had just happened did not affect her at all. This question made Bai Chen's expression turn even uglier. Although he was indignant, he had to admit that Chu Luiyue was able to force him to use his strength. To a certain extent, this was enough to prove something. There was definitely something fishy about this young girl. There was a short moment of silence outside the venue. After a moment, Bai Chen said in a deep voice, "If you can take this move of mine head-on, I will immediately consider you as a qualified candidate." Then, he moved quickly and charged toward Chu Liyue again. The corners of Chu Liyue's mouth twitched ever so slightly. Not only did Bai Chen ask her to deal with his moves, he even asked her to face them head-on. Anyone would know that this was a little too much. Even if he suppressed his strength to that of a rank 3 warrior, he was still a rank 5 warrior, and the power he displayed was stronger than most rank 3 warriors. Even a true rank 3 warrior might not be able to take this move head-on. Chu Liyue looked up. Bai Chen was already right in front of him. A fierce fist went straight for his face. This attack contained even more power than the first time he had attacked. "It's over." Chu Liyue didn't leave any face for Bai Chen. "He's definitely going to be taught a lesson. I'm afraid that a few of Chu Liyue's bones will be broken by this punch." "TSK, so what? Wasn't it Chu Liyue, that trash, who asked for it? As a good-for-nothing, you should obediently curl up in a corner and stop daydreaming." The crowd discussed in low voices as if they could already see the scene of Chu Liyue being defeated. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the slender girl standing in the middle of the square suddenly understood. She didn't make any extra movements. She just staggered her feet and turned her right palm into a fist and punched forward. Gasps could be heard from the crowd. Chu Liyue actually chose to face it head-on and even threw a punch of his own. Bang! A dull sound of impact was heard. Both of their fists collided fiercely. In comparison, Chu Liyue's fist was only half the size of Bai Chen's fist. When the two fists collided, Chu Liyue looked even more slender and weak. Some people couldn't help but hold their breaths. The bones in Chu Liyue's hand must have been broken, right? Sure enough, in the next moment, they saw Chu Liyue's body tremble and blood oozed out from the corner of her mouth. However, just when they thought that everything was over, they saw that Bai Chen's face didn't look relaxed or happy. Instead, it was filled with shock. He widened his eyes and looked at Chu Liyue as if he was looking at a freak. "You?" He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. However, in his heart, a huge wave of emotions had already surged. Chu Liyue's strength was far beyond his imagination. Logically speaking, Chu Liyue definitely wouldn't be able to take this punch. However, she was standing in the same spot and didn't even take a step back. Moreover, he could clearly feel that Chu Liyue's fist was much harder than he had imagined. He secretly gritted his teeth and added a bit more strength. Crack! The ground under Chu Liyue's feet suddenly cracked open. Several cracks quickly spread out. However, Chu Liyue still didn't move. In fact, her entire body was under immense pressure at this moment. The power contained in Bai Chen's fist was definitely not something an ordinary Stage 3 warrior could display. Although this body had already nurtured her Yuan Meridian and she had been practicing hard these days, the difference between the two of them was so many levels that it wasn't so easy to overcome. Her internal organs seemed to be crazily squeezed into a ball by an invisible force, as if they would explode the next moment. However, she still took this blow head-on. She looked at Bai Chen, her black jade-like eyes flashing with a bright light, and said word by word, "You're right. Senior Bai Chen, can you consider it as me going overboard this time?" Bai Chen gritted his teeth, but in the end he retracted his fist and said in a deep voice. Chapter 39. Bai Chen's deep and powerful voice reverberated throughout the square. The originally noisy crowd instantly quieted down. Everyone looked at the square in shock, wondering if they had heard wrongly. What did Bai Chen just say? Chu Liyue passed. After a short moment of dead silence, the crowd burst into an uproar. How is that possible? How could Chu Liyue pass? That's right. She's not even a first-stage warrior, right? How could she pass? Could she have been admitted to Tianlu Academy just like that? That's too easy. It's strange, but Chu Liyue really took Bai Chen's attack. Someone mumbled doubtfully. Some people suddenly quieted down and looked at each other. That's right. Bai Chen had said that as long as she took his attack head-on, Chu Liyue would pass. Chu Liyue did not retreat at all and took the attack head-on. Could it be that Bai Chen did it on purpose? Someone whispered uncertainly, but he quickly covered his mouth after saying that. Questioning Bai Chen in front of everyone was the same as questioning Tianlu Academy. Bai Chen looked around solemnly, took a deep breath, and finally opened his mouth. I know many people suspect that I went easy on her, but I dare to guarantee with my own reputation that there were no problems during the entire exam. Tianlu Academy is the top academy, and it has always been fair and just. Chu Luiwei did pass the warrior exam. Not only did he not go easy on her, but he also secretly increased the difficulty of the exam. Even a true stage 3 warrior might not be able to pass the exam so smoothly. However, Chu Lu did it. Although he looked down on her previously, since she had done it, he would naturally accept it. Bai Chen's final words had completely shut everyone's mouths. As a teacher of Tianlu Academy, Bai Chen was known for his irritable and strict temper. Since even he admitted that Chu Luiwei had passed, no one could say anything else. Bai Chen looked at Chu Luiwei with a complicated expression. He never thought that Chu Luiwei would actually pass the exam. From today onwards, you are a student of Tianlu Academy. Everyone was in an uproar. She thought that she would be able to see Chu Luiwei make a fool of herself today. Who knew that she would actually get into Tianlu Academy? Those who could enter Tianlu Academy were all top-notch geniuses in country Yaochen. Chu Luiwei was a good-for-nothing, yet he was able to enter. It was strange no matter how one thought about it. Chu Luiwei's red lips curled up. Thank you, Senior Bai Chen. Perhaps I should address him as Teacher Bai Chen now? Bai Chen snorted coldly. He saw clearly that Chu Luiwei's face didn't show the slightest bit of surprise. His eyebrows were full of calmness. It was obvious that he had expected this result long ago. In other words, she was confident that she could pass. Bai Chen had previously thought that she and His Majesty were just indulging in fantasy when they proposed to enter Tianlu Academy. Now, however, it was clear that she had a card up her sleeve. Getting into Tianlu Academy is just the beginning. There's nothing to be proud of. You have to know that there are many talents in the academy. Only those who can stand out in the academy can become a true powerhouse. Bai Chen felt that he had lost face. Although Chu Luiwei had already passed the exam, he still didn't look happy. In fact, he still didn't think highly of Chu Luiwei. This was because he hadn't felt any force fluctuations from Chu Luiwei throughout the entire process. He didn't know what method she had used to barely pass the test just now. However, with an incomplete Yuan meridian, it was impossible for her to become a true cultivator. She might be able to reach the ability of a stage 3 warrior by relying on some unorthodox methods. However, it was impossible for her to advance any further. This Chu Luiwei, even if she entered Tianlu Academy, he was afraid that she would achieve nothing in the future. Then he waved his sleeves and turned to leave. Teacher Bai Chen, please wait. Chu Luiwei suddenly spoke up. Bai Chen turned to look at her impatiently. Is there anything else? Since you've already passed the exam, someone will bring you into the academy later. Chu Luiwei shook her head. Teacher Bai Chen, the exam isn't over yet. Bai Chen frowned. What do you mean? Chu Luiwei smiled and pointed at the 2 black wooden boxes that were quietly placed not far away. Aren't there still 2 more exams? Bai Chen's expression turned even colder. Did you not understand the rules just now? There are 3 exams. You only need to pass one of them. Now that Chu Luiwei had already passed the warrior exam, there was no need for her to continue with the remaining 2 exams. Chu Luiwei blinked. Could it be that one person can only take 1 exam? You don't understand. Bai Chen was halfway through his words when he suddenly stopped. Wait, Chu Luiwei meant. Teacher Bai Chen, as far as I know, the academy's entrance exam rules don't seem to have any restrictions in this area, right? Bai Chen didn't speak for a while. The reason why there were 3 exams was that the cultivators in the Black Tortoise mainland were divided into 3 types. Different people had different talents. Some people might not be talented enough on the path of a warrior, but they were shockingly talented in other aspects. And such a person was either a Xian master or a heavenly doctor. There were very few of these 2 types. Celestial physician, in particular, were more than 1 in 10,000. So, you mean, Bai Chen spoke, feeling inexplicably nervous. Chu Luiwei took a step forward with a calm expression. Chapter 40. The entire square was dead silent. Everyone looked at Chu Luiwei as if they were looking at a lunatic. Are you kidding me? She wants to take the remaining 2 exams too? Does she think she can pass all 3 exams? In the entire country Yaochen, there were only a few people who could pass all 3 exams at the same time. Bai Chen frowned deeply. Do you know what you're saying? Are you really going to take the remaining 2 exams? Chu Luiwei nodded. Bai Chen was silent for a moment before he clenched his teeth and waved his sleeves. Okay, I want to see what tricks you can come up with. He then gestured for Chu Luiwei to personally open the remaining 2 black wooden boxes. Chu Luiwei walked over and opened the middle box. There was also a piece of paper and a chessboard inside. On the chessboard, the black and white chess pieces had already been placed, forming a puzzle. Chu Luiwei only took one look and sensed that the chess pieces on the chessboard were placed according to a certain pattern, forming a formation. On the piece of paper were the requirements for the Xian Master exam. You have to solve this puzzle within 2 hours to pass. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary people, 2 hours was too long to solve a puzzle, but in reality, this was completely different from ordinary chess games. The black and white chess pieces more or less contained the heaven and earth force. They were placed in different positions and influenced each other, naturally forming an extremely complicated puzzle. If one wanted to solve this puzzle, they had to be able to keenly sense the flow of the heaven and earth force. Just this point alone was enough to stop most people. Some people could barely sense it, but they couldn't clearly discern the pattern within, much less find a way to solve this puzzle. Therefore, only those who truly had the talent and potential to become a Xian master could pass this round. Bai Chen also walked over, and his gaze paused on Chu Luiwei for a moment. You have to take out the chessboard. After all, the exam time was 2 hours. It would be convenient for students to take out the chessboard. However, Chu Luiwei shook her head and rejected him. Thank you for your reminder, Teacher Bai Chen, but there's no need. Bai Chen paused and sneered inwardly. Such a straightforward rejection meant that he knew that he wouldn't be able to decipher it and was going to give up. He snorted. Since you don't have the ability, don't force yourself. How can it be so easy to become a mystic master? As he spoke, he was about to put away the black wooden box. Chu Luiwei pursed her lips when she heard this. Was Bai Chen certain that she would not be able to pass and thought that she was going to give up? Teacher Bai Chen, please wait. Bai Chen looked at her impatiently. What else was she trying to do? Chu Luiwei had already picked up a black piece and placed it on the chessboard without hesitation. Pa! The chess piece landed on the chessboard, making a soft sound. Just as Bai Chen was about to scold him, he suddenly felt a subtle fluctuation on the chessboard. He subconsciously looked over and saw that the black and white chess pieces on the chessboard seemed to be controlled by an invisible force. They flew up and accurately landed in the chess jars at the side. Crackle! The sound of the chess pieces hitting each other was extremely crisp, but it was like a sudden clap of thunder that exploded in everyone's minds. Chu Luiwei actually managed to decipher this puzzle. Bai Chen was instantly stunned and could not return to his senses for a long time. How long did Chu Luiwei take just now? It seemed like less than 15 minutes. Including the time she spent talking to him, Chu Luiwei only took a few glances to decipher the puzzle. Bai Chen was really shocked this time. He had been at Tianlu Academy for many years and had seen many mystic master geniuses, but he had never seen anyone pass this round so quickly. To be able to do it so quickly, she either knew the answer beforehand or had unparalleled talent. However, this chessboard was one of Tianlu Academy's treasures. It could randomly change into a different game during each exam. Before opening the black wooden box, even he did not know what it would be like. This meant that Chu Luiwei was indeed extremely talented as a mystic master. During the martial artist round, Bai Chen had always thought that Chu Luiwei had relied on some small tricks to pass because he had not sensed any force fluctuations from Chu Luiwei's body. Otherwise, there was really no way to explain how she had caused him to feel such a strong sense of threat and even received his attack head-on. However, everything in front of him now made Bai Chen clearly realize that Chu Luiwei was indeed talented. At the very least, she had the top-notch talent to become a mystic master. Teacher Bai Chen, Is this considered a pass? Chu Luiwei held a smile at the corner of her mouth. Her tone was as calm as ever, as if she did not realize how shocking her talent was. However, Bai Chen could not be as calm as her. It was as if huge waves had been set off in his heart. Because he was also a mystic master. Tianlu Academy's students would usually be assigned to different teachers to cultivate after entering the academy. It was even more so for mystic masters and celestial physician because of their own uniqueness. Every teacher could be considered to be an individual. There were many mystic master teachers in Tianlu Academy, and they were all competitive with each other. They especially liked to show off how amazing their students were. Bai Chen was very sure that Chu Luiwei was definitely a mystic master genius that was hard to come by in 100 years. Chu Luiwei waited for a while. When she saw that Bai Chen did not say anything, she could not help but call out to him again. "Teacher Bai Chen." Bai Chen suddenly returned to his senses. He looked at Chu Luiwei as if he was looking at a rare treasure. He rubbed his hands together, and a fervent smile appeared on his face. Coupled with his originally stern and boorish face, it looked very strange. Chapter 41. The corners of Chu Luiwei's eyes twitched. Little Luyu? His face was filled with annoyance just now, but in the blink of an eye, his attitude did a 180-degree turn. He changed his attitude faster than flipping a book. "Teacher Bai Chen, you don't have to be so polite. How can this be called being polite? Since you're already a student of Tianlu Academy, as a teacher, I should take care of you," Bai Chen hurriedly said. As he spoke, he carefully observed Chu Luiwei's expression and secretly regretted it. How could he treat her like that before? Little Lu Yu definitely did not have a good impression of him. If he had known that she had such shocking talent as a Xian master, he would have definitely treated her well. Thinking of this, he could not help but curse all 18 generations of the Chu family in his heart. Loser? Bullsh * T Chu family. She had no foresight and could not recognize a true genius. She even implicated him. If he had not heard those rumors, he would not have treated her like that before. Little Lu's teacher's attitude was not good just now. Please don't take it to heart. Bai Chen scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Chu Luiwei looked at him in shock. Although Bai Chen looked embarrassed, his eyes were very sincere. He was sincerely apologizing. Chu Luiwei blinked. This person was really interesting. It was true that he did not like her before, and it was also true that he wanted to worm his way into being friends with her now. Was this change because of the Xian master talent that she displayed just now? However, she had already tried her best to suppress it. That endgame was extremely simple. She had started learning formations at the age of 4 and could construct Xian formations by herself at the age of 5. She could not even be bothered to look at such a formation. However, now it seemed like she had to be more low-key. Strength is respected. Liu also knows this. Teacher Bai Chen, you don't have to take it to heart. Bai Chen's status was considered respectable, but he was sincere enough to apologize to her in front of so many people. This made Chu Luiwei's impression of him improve. Such a person was a one-track mind. Only by showing his true strength would he be able to change his attitude. Hearing her say this, Bai Chen finally heaved a sigh of relief and quickly asked politely, "Then, do you still want to continue with the Celestial Physician exam?" Celestial Physician was even rarer than Xian Master. Previously, he thought that Chu Luiwei was just trying to show off, but now he was looking forward to it. Perhaps she was really talented as a Celestial Physician. Chu Luiwei lowered his eyes slightly. She originally thought that the Xian Master exam was a normal procedure, but she didn't expect to shock these people. Just from Bai Chen's reaction, she knew that this matter would definitely spread quickly. A tall tree attracts the wind. She had to be careful during the Celestial Physician exam. Chu Luiwei nodded. Continue. As she spoke, she opened the third black wooden box and took out the exam questions inside. Make use of the 10 medicinal herbs given to you and make a prescription. Chu Luiwei took a look and saw that the wooden box had been divided into 10 compartments. Each compartment contained different medicinal herbs. She quickly took a look and recognized these things. Most of these were extremely common medicinal herbs, but their characteristics were extremely different. Some were cold and some were hot. Among them, there was a silver ice cicada, also known as hanshizi. It was highly poisonous. The examinee needed to have a thorough understanding of these medicinal herbs and balance each other's medicinal effects in order to make a good prescription. Otherwise, if they weren't careful, they would fail. Not only would they not be able to make a good prescription, they might even make a poison. Among these, the handling of hanshizi was clearly the most important. Chu Luiwei obviously knew how to handle hanshizi to remove the poison, but she clearly couldn't do that now. She pondered for a moment and took out the medicinal herbs one by one. Some were ground into powder, some were pressed into juice, and they were mixed together according to different proportions. During the entire process, Chu Luiwei's movements seemed a bit hesitant and slow. Sometimes she even made some small mistakes. Bai Chen watched from the side and shook his head inwardly. Although he wasn't a celestial physician, he more or less understood. Chu Luiwei did have talent in this area, but it was clearly limited. An hour passed very quickly. Chu Luiwei finally finished making the prescription and handed it to Bai Chen. Bai Chen took a look and shook his head. You barely passed. However, that was all there was to it. With this kind of talent, she could at most become a doctor. She couldn't become a true celestial physician. Actually, it was already rare to become a doctor. If other people could pass this exam, they would definitely be overjoyed. However, Bai Chen had previously seen Chu Luiwei's stunning talent as a Xian master. When he looked at this again, he naturally didn't think much of it. Chu Luiwei asked, "Teacher Bai Chen, did I pass this exam?" Bai Chen quickly dismissed those thoughts in his heart and looked at Chu Luiwei with a sigh. Then he laughed out loud. "Of course. I passed. Little Lu, you passed all 3 exams and got into Tianlu Academy. There aren't many people in our entire country, Yao Qin, who can do that." His deep voice rang out in an instant. It reverberated clearly in the entire square. Everyone was at a loss. What's wrong? What happened just now? Chu Luiwei, not only did she get into Tianlu Academy, but she also passed all 3 exams. Chapter 42. Come, I'll bring you to the academy to take a look. Bai Chen was filled with excitement. He could not wait to accept Chu Luiwei as his disciple. It would be a huge regret if he missed out on such a top-notch Xian master prodigy. He was originally unhappy that he was sent to preside over the exam, but he was now filled with joy. He had to win Chu Luiwei's favor before those old fellows found out about her talent. Chu Luiwei could not help but laugh when she saw how eager he was. "Teacher Bai Chen, isn't this a little too fast?" "Not fast, not fast. Not fast at all. You didn't make it in time for the first semester. Now that the school year is halfway through, you're half a year later than the other students. You have to hurry up. At the very least, you should follow me to familiarize yourself with the environment." He suddenly thought of something and slapped his thigh. "Oh right, will you be staying at the Chu residence or the academy? If you're staying at the academy, I'll get someone to arrange a place for you." Tianlu Academy's students were usually free to choose. Students who lived in the imperial city would usually choose to stay at home. As for those who came from outside the imperial city, most of them would stay at the academy. Tianlu Academy was the top academy in country Yaochen, so its conditions were not bad. However, compared to the aristocratic families in the imperial city, it was much simpler. As a result, many aristocratic family descendants spent more time at home than cultivating. Speaking of which, Chu Luiwei was actually the legitimate daughter of the first wife of the Chu family. However, Bai Chen knew very well that Chu Luiwei's life would definitely not be good after being called a good-for-nothing for more than 10 years. Moreover, she had just cancelled her engagement with the crown prince and was now at the heart of the struggle. Not many people in the Chu family would treat her sincerely. Chu Luiwei's heart warmed when she saw Bai Chen's enthusiasm. She knew that he was thinking for her, so she bowed. "Thank you, Teacher Bai Chen." Bai Chen was overwhelmed by the favor and waved his hand. "I'll be your teacher in the future. What's there to thank me for? If you don't have anything else, why don't you follow me to the academy?" Chu Luiwei nodded. "All right." As they spoke, The two of them walked toward Tianlu Academy one after another. At this moment, the crowd finally reacted to what had happened. Looking at the skinny girl, they were speechless for a moment. Who would have thought that she would be able to do this? Looking at Bai Chen's expression, it was clear that he valued her greatly. In the future, he was afraid that Chu Luiyue would no longer be the good-for-nothing that could be bullied and humiliated by others. Step by step, Chu Luiyue walked to the door. He stopped in his tracks and glanced at the words Tianlu Academy. Since then, she had finally entered the top academy in country Yaochen. And this was only the beginning. After Chu Luiyue followed Bai Chen into Tianlu Academy, the series of events that had happened that day spread like wildfire in the imperial city. After passing through the barrier in front of the door, Chu Luiyue finally stepped into Tianlu Academy's territory. As soon as she entered, she immediately sensed that the concentration of origin power in the surroundings was much stronger than outside. When she was outside, she could already see that there was a huge barrier surrounding Tianlu Academy. That barrier was obviously constructed with the help of a Xian formation, and it was perfectly integrated with the entire academy. Chu Luiyue glanced over and sensed a few Xian formation points. She raised her eyebrows slightly, feeling a little surprised. Tianlu Academy's Xian formation was much stronger than she had imagined. It was indeed unexpected to see such a thing in the small country Yaochen. It seemed like coming to Tianlu Academy was the right choice. Bai Chen had been secretly observing Chu Luiyue. When he saw her expression change slightly, his heart skipped a beat. Little Lu Yu, did you sense something? Chu Luiyue naturally knew that he was testing her, so she smiled. The academy seems to be a little different from the outside world. It seems like the power of the Xian formation? You can indeed sense it. Bai Chen was very excited. He sighed in his heart. Chu Luiyue was indeed the most talented Xian master he had seen in so many years. Thinking of this, he could not help but ask, Little Lu Yu, you are so talented as a Xian master. Why did you? At this point, even Bai Chen was a little embarrassed to continue speaking. Everyone knew that Chu Luiyue had been scolded as a good-for-nothing for more than 10 years. Even before today's exam, he thought so too. Logically speaking, an aristocratic family like the Chu family would definitely not miss out on such a genius. Chu Luiyue smiled nonchalantly. That was all in the past. I only discovered that I seemed to have some talent by chance. Bai Chen was secretly speechless. If this is called a little, then there are probably not many people in the entire country Yaochen who can be considered geniuses. It was a pity that Chu Luiyue's talent was discovered too late. If it had happened a few years earlier, her abilities would definitely be much more powerful now. Speaking of which, it was all because of the Chu family. Bai Chen thought to himself. Seeing that Chu Luiyue did not seem to want to talk about this, he did not continue. Instead, he started to introduce the academy to her in detail. Let's not talk about this anymore. Since you are a student of Tianlu Academy in the future, you will naturally be very different from before. You should also be able to sense that the force in the academy is denser than the outside world. All of this is because there is a pit of heavenly origins in the academy. The pit of heavenly origins can continuously produce heaven and earth origin. This Xian formation was used by our first dean to suppress the pit of heavenly origins. Therefore, cultivating in the academy is much faster than cultivating in the outside world. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered. Chapter 43. I see. Chu Luiyue nodded in realization and asked curiously. That so-called pit of heavenly origins is so powerful? Of course. Bai Chen raised his hand and pointed in a certain direction. Do you see Jianghu Tower over there? That's the place closest to the pit of heavenly origins, and the heaven and earth force inside is even denser. It can even reach a few times denser. Cultivating there can be twice the result with half the effort. Chu Luiyue looked at him with a fixed gaze and then smiled. Since that's the case, wouldn't 1 year inside be equivalent to cultivating outside for a few years? Although that's the case, no one has been able to stay inside for so long. The force in Jianghu Tower is very abundant, But it's also because of this that it puts a lot of pressure on the cultivator's body. Even a stage 3 warrior can only stay there for 3 days at most. If you forcefully stay there, not only will it not benefit your cultivation, but it will also cause great damage to your body and even endanger your life. At this point, Bai Chen's expression became much more serious. Don't bite off more than you can chew. I'm sure you know that. Chu Luiyue nodded. However, Jiuyo Tower isn't a place you can enter casually. You just need to understand these things briefly. Bai Chen glanced at Chu Luiyue hesitantly. It's better for you to study the Xian formation when you have time. Chu Luiyue smiled but didn't say anything. She knew what Bai Chen meant. She had an incomplete Yuan meridian, and it was useless for her to go there. Only Xian masters didn't have any requirements for their Yuan meridian as long as they could feel the heaven and earth force circulating. He had said this out of consideration for her. Chu Luiyue didn't explain further. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing to enter as a Xian master genius. Many things would be much more convenient in the future. At the same time, she could leave a way out for herself. It was killing several birds with one stone. That's the Academy's martial arts field. Students usually spar there. Next to it is the arena, which is usually where students formally challenge each other. As Bai Chen led Chu Luiyue into the academy, he told her about many things related to the academy. Today is the day you enter the academy. You also know that the academy recruits the top geniuses. In order to tap their greatest potential, the academy's teaching method is very particular. Bai Chen raised 3 fingers. Warrior, Xian Master, and Celestial Physician. Celestial Physician, there are even fewer students. Furthermore, less than 1/3 of them could become heavenly doctors. After students enter the academy, they will be assigned to different teachers according to their results. However, if the student's talent is extremely good, there will be a situation where several teachers will fight over the student. At this time, the students will usually choose which teacher to follow. Bai Chen coughed as he spoke. And I am usually a Xian master teacher. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. Being a warrior was not rare. In comparison, being a Xian master was more honorable. It was normal for him to choose to be a Xian master teacher. At the same time, Chu Luiyue finally understood why Bai Chen's attitude suddenly changed after she displayed her talent as a Xian master. It was obvious that he wanted to take her in as his disciple. But Chu Luiyue did not want to make a decision too early, so she did not say anything even though she had a smile on her face. Bai Chen was a little disappointed when he saw this, but he knew that with his previous attitude he did not have the face to ask Chu Luiyue to choose him as her master. Chu Luiyue calmly changed the topic. Teacher Bai Chen, why is the academy a little quiet? We've been here for a while, but we haven't seen anyone. Bai Chen was taken aback before bursting into laughter. That's because the academy's 3-day midterm assessment has started. Today is the first day, so the students and teachers have all gone to the back of the mountain. Midterm assessment? That sounds a little familiar. If she did not remember wrongly, she remembered that Chu Xianmin had planned to come out on top in this assessment. At this moment, a few female voices were heard. Min, let's go quickly. The assessment is about to start. Pei, why are you in such a hurry? Isn't there still some time? Besides, Min has always been liked by the teachers. They won't blame her even if she's late. Don't you think so, Min? Even so, it's not good to be late. Let's hurry. Speaking of which, it's all my fault today. If I hadn't been held up by something at home, we wouldn't be so late. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction of the voice and saw a few girls walking out from the right. Who else could it be other than Chu Xianmin? Who else could it be? Min, you're too kind. I heard that it's all because of Chu Luiyue that you were punished by your father. That good-for-nothing clearly can't stand that you're more outstanding than her, so she's deliberately taking revenge. At the mention of Chu Luiyue, Chu Xianmin's face froze for a moment, but it quickly disappeared. No matter what, she's still my sister. She's not worthy. I remember that today is the day of her assessment, right? She's really not afraid of embarrassing herself. If I were her, I would have killed myself out of shame. Min, You're the person who came first in the academy's assessment. She's just a good-for-nothing who can't even get into our academy. What does she have to compete with you? Chu Xianmin pursed her lips, but a tinge of happiness flashed across her heart. However, at this moment, she suddenly felt that something was amiss. She subconsciously turned around and saw a familiar face. Chu Luiwei. Chapter 44. Upon hearing this, Chu Luiwei asked, "Why can't I be here? Why can't I be here?" After the series of events at the Crown Prince's birthday banquet, Chu Xianmin hated Chu Luiwei to the core. Now that she suddenly saw Chu Luiwei, she could not wait to teach her a lesson. However, she suddenly realized that there was someone standing beside Chu Luiwei when the words were about to come out of her mouth. It was Teacher Bai Qin from the academy. She forcefully swallowed the words in her throat and quickly hid her hateful expression. When she looked up at Bai Qin again, she had her usual gentle smile on her face. "Greetings, Teacher Bai Qin." Her greeting immediately made the few people around her react, and they immediately followed suit and saluted. "Greetings, Teacher Bai Qin." Bai Qin frowned and did not say anything. He had clearly heard what these people had said earlier. Putting aside the grudge between Chu Xianmin and Chu Luiwei had never provoked anyone else. He did not expect them to speak so harshly in private. He treasured Chu Luiwei a lot in his heart, and he couldn't bear to hear anyone slander or humiliate her. Bai Qin had a bad temper to begin with. When he heard this, his heart was already burning with anger. Sensing Bai Qin's anger, Chu Xianmin and the rest could not help but exchange glances. They were a little worried. Could it be that he heard what we said just now? Even if he heard us, we kept talking about Chu Luiwei. Why is Teacher Bai Qin angry? The academy recruited all of you in order to let you cultivate and become experts, not for you to gossip behind people's backs. If your mind isn't on cultivation, then get out of here. Bai Qin did not give them any face. His words were powerful and made the few people's faces turn pale. These words were too harsh. When had they ever been reprimanded like this before? For a moment his face was burning. However, Bai Qin had a distinguished status. How could they dare to go against him? The few of them secretly looked at Chu Xianmin for help. At this time, only Chu Xianmin, who was the teacher's favorite, could speak. Chu Xianmin was also shocked by Bai Qin. Didn't I just say a few words about Chu Luiwei? Did he have to act like this? Teacher Bai Qin, you might have misunderstood something. We were just casually speaking just now. We don't have any ill intentions. However, Bai Qin did not seem to want to give her any face today. So you're saying that I heard wrongly? Chu Xianmin choked. Normally, the teachers in the academy would never treat her like this. What was going on today? Minmin didn't mean that. It's just that I was a little surprised to see you here, so I couldn't help but ask. She changed the topic, intending to cover up the fact that they had insulted Chu Luiwei. At the same time, she quickly remembered something. The person who was sent to test Chu Luiwei today was Bai Qin. Calculating the time, the exam should have ended by now. But why didn't Chu Luiwei go back? Why did he come in? Chu Luiwei narrowed his eyes and said with a faint smile, "I'm here to take the exam for Tianlu Academy today." Third sister, don't tell me you don't know? Weren't you guys talking about this just now? Chu Xianmin secretly gritted her teeth. The smile on her face was almost gone. That's why I'm curious. Teacher Bai Qin, the academy seems to have a rule that ordinary people can't just come in, right? The people behind her could not help but whisper softly. Yeah, Chu Luiwei is an outsider. How can he come in? This is against the rules, Bai Qin sneered. Against the rules? Am I the teacher, or are you the teachers? Let me tell you. From today onwards, Chu Luiwei is a student of Tianlu Academy. Why can't she come in? What? Chu Xianmin could not help but exclaim in shock. She looked at Chu Luiwei in disbelief. How is this possible? How could Chu Luiwei get into Tianlu Academy? Bai Qin did not interact much with Chu Xianmin usually, but he found her annoying no matter how he looked at her. Compared to a Xian master, what was Chu Xianmin's so-called talent? The Chu family was really muddle-headed. Are you doubting me? Asked Bai Chen coldly. Chu Xianmin suddenly regained her senses and hurriedly said, No, no. Teacher Bai Chen, are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Chu Luiwei has an incomplete Yuan meridian. She was born a good-for-nothing. How can she be qualified to enter the academy? The girl called Pei Pei finally could not help but question him. She looked at Chu Luiwei with eyes full of disgust and suspicion. Bai Chen was so angry that he laughed. Let me tell you, not only did she get in, but she also passed all 3 examinations. Chu Xianmin and the rest were completely stunned. They did not recover for a long time. When they realized the meaning of these words, the expressions on their faces became brilliant and varied. Chu Luiwei did not know whether to laugh or cry as she looked at Bai Chen. Before she could even say anything, he had already helped her vent her anger. Chu Xianmin's face turned green and white. She almost suspected that there was something wrong with her ears. However, Bai Chen was standing next to Chu Luiwei. How could it be fake? What methods did Chu Luiwei use? There seemed to be a fire burning crazily in her chest, almost making her unable to stand. Minmin, Pei Pei, why aren't you here yet? The assessment is about to start. The teachers are looking for you. You'll be late if you don't go now. At this moment, someone suddenly appeared not far away. Chu Xianmin had an idea and suddenly looked at Chu Luiwei. Sister, you came at the right time. The midterm assessment has always been the busiest time in the academy. Why don't you go and take a look? If you're interested, why don't you join in? This is also a chance to get to know more people in the academy. What do you think? Is she trying to test me? Chu Luiwei smiled. Sure. Zhenbao Pavilion was especially lively today. It was not even noon, but many people had already gathered on the first floor. Moreover, they were all people of status. They were here today for the same reason. Zhenbao Pavilion had recently received a new batch of treasures. Today, they were going to hold an auction for these items. A few days ago, the booklet had already been sent to every family. As some of the items were indeed rare, many people came today. Zhenbao Pavilion's second in charge, Yan Go, was enthusiastically chatting with the crowd. Second Master Yan, we've been waiting for today's auction for a long time. Yeah. I wonder who will get those items in the end. Hee, won't we know when the auction starts? Thank you for your hard work, Second Master Yan. Yan Gu was full of smiles. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. At this moment, a page boy suddenly walked behind Yan Gu and whispered into his ear. At the same time, he handed him a letter. Yan Gu laughed and said, Everyone please. I'll take my leave first. Then, he retreated to the cubicle at the back of the hall and carefully opened the letter. Why did Master suddenly send a letter? When he saw the words on the letter, Yanji's voice stopped abruptly, and his eyes widened. His expression quickly changed, and it took him a while to calm his frantic heartbeat. After a while, he walked out and stood in the middle of the hall. I'm sorry, everyone. Today's auction has been cancelled. Once this was said, everyone was shocked. What? It's cancelled? What's going on? We've been waiting here for the whole morning. How can it be cancelled just like that? Yan Gu cupped his hands in apology, but his tone was firm. Chapter 45. Hearing Yan Gu mention the big master, the noisy hall immediately quietened down. Everyone looked at each other. They did not expect this to be the intention of the mysterious big master of Zhenbao Pavilion. If it was any other reason, they could still argue. But who knew that it was actually that person? He was not someone to be trifled with. Yan Gu chuckled and said, Don't worry. Everyone, don't worry. In order to compensate everyone for today's loss, my Zhenbao Pavilion will send a small gift to each of our esteemed guests. Please forgive us. Hearing Yan Ji's words, everyone's expression became better. This was considered giving them a way out. Of course, everyone gave face. Second Master Yan, you're too courteous. Since it's the big master's request, we naturally won't object. That's right. Zhenbao Pavilion has been doing business in the capital for so many years. Why would we purposely make things difficult for them? We'll just wait for a while. Gift or not, Second Master Yen is too courteous. Almost everyone present was an aristocrat in the capital. What they cared about the most was not money, but status and face. If it was another house that canceled the auction at the last minute, they would definitely not let the matter rest. But it was Zhenbao Pavilion. In their hearts, they were more or less afraid of him. Yen Gu continued with a smile. Thank you very much, everyone. Later, the people from Zhenbao Pavilion will give each of you a barrier-breaking pill as an apology. Hearing his words, the crowd was shocked again. Wall-breaking pill? That was a rarely seen first-rate medicinal pill. Advancing from a Stage 3 warrior to a Stage 4 warrior was a huge threshold that all cultivators faced. Many people were unable to successfully break through in their entire lives and remained Stage 3 warriors forever. But if they used the wall-breaking pill, the success rate would increase by 2 times. This 2 times did not sound very impressive, but it could help some people successfully break through and advance further. It was really a precious treasure. Ordinary people might not even have one in their entire lives. Even existences like the 4 great clans could only take out a few of them. But Zhenbao Pavilion actually said that they would give one to each person. There were at least 20 to 30 people here. If everyone had one, and this was just their way of apologizing. Zhenbao Pavilion was really generous. Some people's expressions changed again as they started to re-evaluate the precious treasure pavilion's position. So many wall-breaking pills were not something that could be obtained with money alone. What was the background of this treasure pavilion? And who exactly was that great master of theirs who had never shown his face? The wall-breaking pill successfully appeased everyone's dissatisfaction. Even if they still had complaints, they didn't dare to say anything. After a while, someone finally laughed and joked. Second Master Yen, Zhenbao Pavilion must have suffered a huge loss this time, right? Your first master is really willing to do anything for his wife. Yen Gu straightened his back and smiled politely. It's nothing. Our first master has a deep relationship with Madam. As long as he can make Madam smile, what does this count for? The crowd roared with laughter. Soon, someone stood up and took his leave. Soon, everyone in the hall left one after another, leaving only Yen Gu and a few servants. Yen Gu finally heaved a sigh of relief after those people had all disappeared and closed the door. He rubbed his face that had stiffened from smiling and immediately turned to enter the cubicle at the back of the hall. He hurriedly asked the servant who delivered the letter. Since when did the first master have a wife? Only the heavens knew that he was completely stunned when he saw the letter from the first master. The servant coughed. I only found out today. It should be something that happened recently. You follow the first master every day, how could you not know? Yen Gu didn't believe him. He immediately stepped forward and took out the letter. He read it carefully a few times and lamented, I've been following the first master for so many years. How could I not know anything about such an important matter? It's fine if the first master didn't say anything, but why didn't you tell me first? You suddenly did this today and I almost couldn't clean up the mess. The servant felt wronged. I really didn't know either. If you really want to know, you can ask the first master yourself. Yen Gu immediately shut up. He didn't have the guts. After hesitating for a while, he finally couldn't help but ask softly, Sai, you should know who Madam is, right? Can you tell me? So that we won't clash in the future. The page boy sighed. You'll naturally find out in a few days. Yen Gu was even more curious after hearing this. The first master had never been tempted by women before. Why did he suddenly have a madam? What kind of fairy could win the first master's heart? I've delivered the letter. I'll take my leave first. Take care of things here. The first master will be here soon. The servant left quickly after he finished speaking. Sigh. Yen Gu couldn't stop him and rubbed his glabella with a headache. The first master wanted to pick a gift for Madam and didn't hesitate to offend so many important people in the imperial city. It was obvious that he was serious. Tianlu Academy, Back Mountain. Many students were gathered here. It was very lively and noisy. Their young faces were filled with unconcealed excitement and nervousness. I wonder what the assessment this year is like? I heard that the rewards are exceptionally generous. Our academy has always been generous. What's so strange about this? The key is whether we can get into the top few places. That's true. The higher the ranking, the better the rewards. The 3 batches of students will be assessed separately, and there will be 3 first places. Chu Xianmin will definitely be the first in our batch, right? Sigh, speaking of her, why isn't she here yet? Teacher Bai Chen isn't back either. Bai Chen and the rest finally arrived just as the crowd was discussing. A green-robed teacher, who was preparing for the assessment, saw Bai Chen and hurriedly waved at him. Bai Chen, you're finally back. Why did you take so long for an assessment? You still have to deal with the Xian formation over there. However, Bai Chen laughed and interrupted him. Ling Zhu, I wasn't wasting time. I picked up a treasure for our academy. His voice was loud to begin with, and he had made up his mind to support Chu Luiyue. Thus, his voice reverberated loudly. It landed clearly in everyone's ears. At this moment, everyone's gazes were focused on Zhang Xian. Ling Zhu looked at him in confusion. What do you mean? Bai Chen laughed and took a step to the side, signaling Chu Luiyue to come forward. Chu Luiyue bowed obediently. Lu Yu greets teacher Ling Zhu. Lu Yu? Chu Luiyue? Ling Zhu sized her up and furrowed his brows as he looked at Bai Chen. Bai Chen, your little Lu Yu has passed 3 assessments and is officially a part of our academy. I brought her here to watch the fun. As soon as he finished speaking, the originally noisy back mountains suddenly fell silent. Chu Xianmin saw that Chu Luiyue was in the limelight again and immediately went forward with a smile. Chapter 46. Upon hearing Chu Xianmin's words, the originally silent back mountain was in an uproar. Everyone was shocked as they looked at Chu Luiyue as if they were looking at a lunatic. Chu Luiyue wants to participate in their assessment? Ling Zhu furrowed his brows and looked at Bai Chen in disapproval. Bai Chen, what's going on? The academy's assessment is about to start. You can't joke around. Bai Chen chuckled. Why would I joke about something like this? Since little Lu Yu has already been admitted to our academy, why can't she participate in the assessment? Ling Zhu still had some doubts in his heart, so he scrutinized Chu Luiyue again. Everyone in the imperial city knew that Chu Luiyue was born a good-for-nothing. Otherwise, as the eldest daughter of the Chu family, she would not have been bullied by everyone. However, Bai Chen was now saying that Chu Luiyue had been admitted to their academy and had passed all 3 assessments. How was this possible? One had to know that there were only a few people who could do this in the entire history of the academy. However, he knew Bai Chen's character very well. He was very straightforward. If someone did not have any real ability, he would not be nice to them. However, he obviously liked Chu Luiyue now. Seeing that he did not speak for a long time, Bai Chen impatiently waved his hand. Okay. I know you don't believe me. When the assessment starts later, you can see for yourselves. Ling Zhu could only agree to his words. Then, which assessment is she participating in? Chu Xianmin immediately pricked up her ears. She really wanted to know what Chu Luiyue relied on to get in and even participate in the assessments so boldly. Bai Chen went up to Chu Luiyue and smiled. Little Lu Yu, what do you want to take? The Xian Master assessment is actually easier and doesn't take much time. Why don't you choose this one? Ling Zhu secretly shook his head. She really didn't know what was wrong with Bai Chen. The warrior assessment was clearly the shortest. The remaining 2 assessments, whether it was the Mystic Cultivator assessment or the Celestial Physician assessment, consumed a lot of energy and stamina. He clearly wanted Chu Luiyue to take the Mystic Master exam, but why? Of course, Chu Luiyue could guess Bai Chen's thoughts, so she smiled and said, "Thank you for your advice, Teacher Bai Chen. Then I'll be a Xian Master." As soon as he said that, the crowd began to whisper to each other. "TSK, you're quite good at acting. I don't believe that she can pass all 3 exams. Other things aside, how can a person with an incomplete Yuan Meridian pass the martial arts exam? Who knows what methods he used to pass the exam? If she really has the ability, why doesn't she directly participate in the warrior assessment and prove her strength?" But, Teacher Bai Chen looks like he really cares about Chu Luiwei. Doesn't he usually dislike those students with mediocre aptitude and restlessness? Who knows? Won't we find out later? When Bai Chen heard these words, his face turned cold, and he was about to explode. This bunch of brats. I must. However, Chu Luiwei smiled and shook his head. Teacher Bai Chen, it's normal for people to have doubts. When the assessment ends, Lu Yu will naturally shut them up. Bai Chen looked at her calm and collected appearance, and the anger in his heart subsided a lot. But use your strength to shut them up. As Bai Chen spoke, he looked up and scanned the surroundings before explaining, Little Lu Yu, there are a total of 3 batches of students in the academy. The midterm assessment is also conducted separately. Even though all the students are at the back of the mountain, they are separated. You just enrolled today, so you're considered the youngest batch. They're all over there now. You can just go there later. Chu Luiwei followed his gaze and nodded. Teacher Bai Chen, why don't I bring my sister there? It's more convenient that way. Chu Xianmin suddenly spoke. Bai Chen squinted at her and sneered. He still remembered clearly that Chu Xianmin and the few people around her were bad-mouthing Chu Luiwei. She definitely did not have any good intentions toward Chu Luiwei. He was not at ease. The surrounding people looked at Chu Xianmin strangely. Why is Teacher Bai Chen treating her like this? Hasn't Chu Xianmin always been liked by the teachers? Chu Xianmin's face turned red, and she suddenly felt awkward. Ling Zhu could not stand it and said gently, Minmin, since she's your sister, it's best that you bring her there. You can go now. The assessment is about to start. Chu Luiwei walked forward with a smile. Thank you, third sister. Seeing Chu Luiwei like this, Bai Chen did not stop her. He thought to himself, little Lu Yu is clearly not that easy to bully. Chu Xianmin looked at Chu Luiwei, who was standing in front of her, and was momentarily dazed. It had only been a while since they last met, but Chu Luiwei seemed to be much prettier than before. Her skin was smooth, and her eyes were bright. Every frown and smile seemed to be able to move one's heart. She was just standing there, but there seemed to be an invisible aura floating around her, making her look much more noble. That pair of starry eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. The uncomfortable feeling in Chu Xianmin's heart grew stronger. Even she knew that Chu Luiwei's looks and elegance had already surpassed hers. She clenched her teeth and suppressed the jealousy and anger in her heart. She smiled at Chu Luiwei and led her forward. Many people's gazes were focused on them. Chu Luiwei ignored them and quickly followed Chu Xianmin to where the crowd was gathered. The people standing there were clearly the youngest batch of students. A round silver nameplate was pinned on their left chests. There was a sword engraved on the nameplate, and there were small words under the sword. Chu Luiwei glanced at it and saw a number written on it, 453. That sword was obviously Tianlu Academy's symbol, and the number represented the batch of students. Chu Xianmin also had a similar nameplate on her left chest. Chu Xianmin pointed in a certain direction. Sister, the people here are taking the warrior assessment. Those over there are the people taking the Xian master assessment. You can go over there now. Chu Luiwei quickly glanced at the dozens of students standing there. Their auras were indeed a little different. At this moment, they were looking at Chu Luiwei with intense scrutiny and undisguised hostility. Chu Luiwei walked over. When she was 3 steps away from them, a young man suddenly walked out and blocked Chu Luiwei's path. A cold voice rang in her ear. Not everyone is qualified to be a Xian master. This is not a place you should be. Do you understand? Chu Luiwei curled her lips silently. She looked up and saw that the nameplate on the young man's left chest was not silver but black and white. Is this the symbol of a Xian master? Chu Luiwei was calm. Chapter 47. She looked at the youth in front of her. He looked to be around 15 or 16 years old. He was tall and thin, and his appearance was clean and delicate. However, there was an arrogant aura around him that made people feel uncomfortable. Teacher Bai Chen asked me to come here. Are you saying that this is Teacher Bai Chen's fault? Chu Luiwei asked indifferently. The youth's expression changed slightly, and he frowned. Bai Chen was one of the top mystic teachers in the academy. His status was respected, and even he did not dare to offend him. If he was accused of this, he would not have a good ending. After a moment he sneered. Do you only know how to use teacher Bai Chen as a shield? If you have the ability, show some real skills. Otherwise, even if you enter the academy, no one will think highly of you. Chu Liwei replied with an, "Oh. So aren't I here to participate in the assessment? You're blocking my way, brother." The youth's face turned red from choking. He looked at Chu Liwei and wanted to reprimand her, but he did not know what to say. "Xiang, come back." At this moment, a clear voice sounded. Although the tone was calm, it carried a faint dignity that made people unable to defy it. Chu Liwei looked up and realized that the voice came from another youth standing behind the crowd. When she saw the youth's appearance clearly, Chu Liwei raised her brows. This person's appearance was extremely good. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. He was very handsome, and his facial features seemed to have been carved by a knife. He stood there surrounded by people, but those people added together were not as eye-catching as him. Under the sunlight, the shadows of the trees swayed. He stood with his hands behind his back like a sword that was about to be unsheathed. He had a frighteningly sharp aura. The nameplate in front of his chest was also black and white. He was clearly a mystic. This person was not simple, Chu Liwei thought to herself. When she came over just now, she did not notice this person at all. Logically speaking, his aura was so obvious that she definitely would not have missed it. There was only one possibility. This youth had completely concealed his aura just now. Being able to do this was enough to prove that his strength was definitely not weak. As if noticing Chu Liue's gaze, the young man's gaze shifted slightly and he also glanced at her. A hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. He had seen this first miss of the Chu clan before. His impression of her was that she had a timid personality. Why did she seem to have changed into a different person now? When the youth called Xiang heard this voice, he pursed his lips and looked at Chu Liwei. Let's see who's the real deal later. Chu Liwei shrugged her shoulders and did not comment. She wasn't sure if he had that ability. But, the name Xiang, they seemed to be from the Xi family, the leader of the 4 great families? Big brother. Xiang walked up to the man and became much more obedient. Chu Liwei immediately understood. So it was him. There were many talented people in the younger generation of the Xi family, and the most famous of them all was the eldest young master of the Xi family, Xi Ting. Half a year ago, he had entered Tianlu Academy as the top Xian master in the examination. At that time, a teacher at Tianlu Academy had praised Xi Ting for his exceptional talent in this area. He would become one of the most outstanding Xian masters in country Yaochen within a few years. This caused a huge commotion at that time. Xi Ting received even more praise and support than Chu Xianmin, who had gotten first place in the warrior examination. However, half a year had passed, and Chu Xianmin's abilities and reputation kept increasing. On the other hand, Xi Ting seemed to have completely quieted down. As time passed, everyone gradually only remembered how outstanding Chu Xianmin was. Have you studied the 8 water formation that I showed you a few days ago? Asked Xi Ting. Xiang hurriedly nodded. Of course. Big brother said that as long as I understand this formation, I have hope of breaking through from a level 1 Xian master to a level 2 Xian master. So, I've been studying it all these days. Someone at the side could not help but say, Xi Ting, while you were in seclusion, Xiang had already successfully broken through to a level 2 Xian master. Xiang could not help but look happy and proud. Big brother, even though I can't compare to you, I don't dare to slack off. I've been cultivating hard. Xi Ting's face then revealed a smile that was as bright as the moon breaking through the clouds. That's good. Xiang suddenly thought of something and leaned closer to ask, Big brother, have you heard? The rewards for this examination seem to be very generous. Especially the first place, it seems like, everyone, get ready. Before he could finish speaking, the examiner's voice was heard. At the same time, all the students immediately quietened down. The warrior examination is in the 1st zone. The Xian master examination is in the 2nd zone. The Celestial Physician examination is in the 3rd zone. All the examinations will be conducted at the same time. As he spoke, a teacher started to bring the students to the different examination areas. Chu Luiwei and the rest were quickly brought to the 2nd zone. There were teachers waiting for him there as well. Chu Luiwei saw that everyone here, regardless of whether they were teachers or students, was a Xian master without exception. She looked back and realized that the 3 examination areas were actually very close to each other. They could even see each other, but the areas were separated. Welcome to the Xian Master examination. A teacher stood in front and spoke loudly. Actually, this examination is very simple. Do you see the forest in front of you? As long as you enter from here, pass through the forest, and get the flag on the other side, you'll pass. Not only did the dozens of students not relax, but they also became nervous. Everyone knew that this forest was definitely not that simple to pass through. There must be a Xian formation set up inside. However, you have to listen carefully. After entering, everyone must complete the battle alone. If you discover that anyone is teaming up, your results will be nullified. Speaking of this, the teacher's expressions suddenly became much more serious. There will be teachers monitoring the entire examination process. If you have any thoughts, keep them to yourself, understand? Yes. The students' expressions became serious. Actually, this rule was very normal. After all, the Xian Master examination was based on one's ability. If they teamed up, what was the point? Alright, now, I announce. The Xian Master examination begins. The moment the teacher finished speaking, he threw something out. Bang! A bright firework exploded in midair. Let's go! The moment the firework exploded, someone had already rushed in without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, their figures disappeared into the dense forest. What's the hurry? The Xian Master examination isn't just about running fast. Si Yang mumbled and then glanced at Si Ting. Big brother, I'm leaving first. Since they couldn't work together, it was better for them to split up. Si Ting nodded. Everyone left one by one, and soon, only Chu Luiwei and Si Ting were left. Si Ting was about to lift his leg when he realized that Chu Luiwei was faster than him and took 3 steps to the right. Chapter 48. A Xian formation had already been set up in this forest. The moment they entered the forest, the test had already begun. Si Ting had already realized that the Xian formation was a little special. It was actually a little troublesome to enter from their current position. However, this was obviously done by the Academy's teachers on purpose. Only the truly talented and capable Xian masters could recognize the Xian formation and choose to enter from another direction. This was also why he did not follow the others in immediately and stayed at the back. He did not intend to enter from this entrance at all. However, he did not expect that other than him, there was actually someone else who could do this. Furthermore, this person had to be Chu Luiwei, who had just entered the academy today. Si Ting's mind raced as he glanced at Chu Luiwei without batting an eyelid. Was this just a coincidence, or was she really capable? Chu Luiwei naturally sensed Si Ting's attention, but she did not hesitate. She continued to take a few steps back and avoided the entrance. Then, she chose to walk in another direction. If we wait any longer, the first place will be mine. Chu Luiwei turned around and smiled at Si Ting. Si Ting was taken aback. In that instant, he felt that the surrounding scenery was overshadowed. The girl in red seemed to have gathered all the light on her body. It was brilliant and dazzling. However, her obsidian-like eyes were even brighter and more breathtaking than all of this. Everything around them became blurry at this moment. Only this girl became the only color. Si Ting's heart skipped a beat. He felt something brush past him. When he came back to his senses, Chu Luiwei had already disappeared into the dense forest. He could only see a strand of her hair fluttering in the wind. Si Ting closed his eyes and suppressed the ripple in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he also took a few steps back and entered from another direction. The teachers in charge of the test only recovered from their shock after all the students had entered the forest. They looked at each other in disbelief. Just now, how did Chu Luiwei enter from that direction? Only a third-level Xian master can recognize this formation. Logically speaking, only Si Ting should be able to enter from the correct direction. How did Chu Luiwei do it? Although Si Ting had been very quiet for the past half a year, the teachers in the academy all knew that he had broken through to become a level 3 mystic cultivator a few days ago. He was only 15 years old. With such talent and ability, almost no one in the entire country Yaochen could compare to him. Even if he were to compete with those senior brothers and sisters, he would almost never lose. It was normal for him to be able to see through the profound formation's mysteries. But what's going on with Chu Luiwei? Hey, I told you that Lu Yu is a genius, but you didn't believe me. When the results of the competition are out, make sure your eyeballs don't fall to the ground. At this moment, Bai Qin had also walked over. He wasn't the teacher in charge of the examination, so he could only watch from the side and didn't participate personally. But that didn't stop him from coming to watch the show. Let me tell you, if Lu Yu chooses a teacher, I, Bai Chen, will be the first one. Don't you dare fight with me, Bai Chen said with a smile of exultation. When he saw that Chu Luiwei had chosen the correct direction to enter, he couldn't help but applaud in his heart. When the results of the examination are out, let's see if these people will still look at Lu Yu with the same expression. It seems like Chu Luiwei is indeed talented in this area. Even if he can't compare to Si Ting, he's already pretty good. One of the teachers nodded. They were all Xian masters, so of course they could tell something. There was nothing to hide. Can't compare to Si Ting? Bai Chen asked in return and grinned. Chapter 49. When Chu Luiwei entered the forest, she immediately sensed a subtle change in the entire Xian formation. It was obvious that this Xian formation was completely controlled by the academy's teachers. Whatever happened inside, they would be the first to know. Chu Luiwei narrowed her eyes and stayed in the same spot for a while. Then, she seemed to be hesitant as she chose a direction and walked in that direction. This kind of Xian formation was too easy for her. If she wanted to, she could directly walk out of it using the most correct and convenient path. But after the previous incident, she already roughly knew what kind of standard she should display to be the most suitable. Hence, she started to walk slowly in the forest. Since she had already entered the academy, everything else was easy to discuss. As for the first place, she really wasn't interested. She agreed to participate in the assessment this time because she hoped to let those people know that she wasn't so easy to bully. This way, she could save a lot of trouble in the future. What she said just now was just an act. Chu Luiwei walked like this for about half an hour before she reached a fork in the road. These 3 paths all extended into the forest, but they led to different directions. Looking forward from here, other than the dense trees, she couldn't see anything else. This was the time for her to make a choice. Chu Luiwei stood at the fork in the road and was silent for a moment. Then she chose the middle path. Not long after she walked on this path, a whistling gust of wind suddenly attacked. The trees shook violently. Some of the leaves carried a terrifying aura and flew towards Chu Luiwei. The sound of air breaking was incessant. Biting cold, killing intent surrounded her from all directions. However, Chu Luiwei's eyes were still calm. She wasn't surprised at all. In the next moment, she tiptoed and her figure flew out quickly. She narrowly avoided the attack of those leaves. At the same time, on the other side of the forest, 2 middle-aged men and an old man were sitting in a circle. The 3 of them were meditating with their eyes closed. They looked like they were asleep. However, in the middle of them, there was a silver Xian formation. It was shining brightly. Several silver lines intersected and overlapped, forming an extremely complicated pattern. Suddenly, one of the lines violently jumped. A man opened his eyes and asked in surprise, "How long has it been? He's already here? This Chu Luiwei looks like he really is a genius mystic cultivator." The old man also opened his eyes and stroked his beard with a smile. Not bad. Among so many people, only she and Si Ting had walked in the right direction from the start. Although her choice wasn't as good as Si Ting's, it's still very outstanding. The last person hesitated for a moment and shook his head. It's a pity that this girl doesn't walk in an orderly manner. She probably hasn't learned much about Xian formations and is just making guesses based on her feelings. Look, isn't this the wrong way? The old man narrowed his eyes and suddenly asked. This old man remembers that Chu Luiwei didn't have a good time in the Chu family? The Chu family shouldn't have hired a teacher for her, right? Elder son, you mean? Sun Zhongyan lowered his eyes and glanced at the profound formation. The line that had been fluctuating intensely earlier had already calmed down. He let out a meaningful laugh. Although that girl walked in the wrong direction, she doesn't seem to be injured. Heh, such talent has really been wasted by the Chu family. At this moment, a star suddenly lit up on the profound formation. The two middle-aged men were shocked. Chapter 50. Si Ting is extremely talented. He seems to have improved a lot during this period of time. It is not surprising that he was able to find the array core. Sun Zhongyan did not seem surprised as he waved his hand. However, I am surprised that he has been keeping a low profile ever since he entered the academy. Why is it that today, it was not his style to show off like this? Or has he sensed that an opponent who can threaten him has appeared? Sun Zhongyan muttered softly. The other two looked at each other with a puzzled expression. Threaten? Elder Sun, are you serious? Is there someone who can threaten Si Ting among the students in the academy? Outsiders might not know, but as Xian masters, they knew how talented and powerful Si Ting was. It was not an exaggeration to say that even Si Ting's seniors from 2 batches before him might not be his match. Didn't you say that Si Ting's talent as a Xian master is only seen once in 100 years? Sun Zhongyan stretched out a finger and pointed at the Xian formation in the middle of the 3 men. Look carefully. Chu Luiwei has been walking in a disorderly manner, but she has been walking in the same direction. Hearing this, the 2 men looked down in confusion. Starting from where she had entered, she had been walking toward the array core. Even though the process in the middle was a little messy, Chu Luiwei was indeed heading toward the formation's eye as a whole. How is this possible? She is not even a first-level Xian master. How could she have found the array core? She must have been guessing based on her intuition. The 2 men's faces were filled with disbelief. Sun Zhongyan chuckled. If she did not walk in the wrong direction at the 3-way junction, she should have reached the array core by now. Maybe she will be faster than Si Ting. His words made the other 2 men fall into silence. They did not speak for a long time. No wonder Bai Chen was so excited just now. It seems that he has indeed discovered a rare genius. Sun Zhongyan looked at the Xian formation with interest. He was very curious about Chu Luiwei. She was either not familiar with Xian formations or she was deliberately hiding her abilities. Chu Luiwei walked through the forest. At a certain point, she suddenly stopped and closed her eyes. She carefully felt the changes in the Xian formation. We're finally here, Chu Luiwei murmured and opened his eyes. Si Ting should have reached the eye of the array, so she could go too. Firstly, she was not interested and did not intend to reveal her background today. However, their results couldn't be too bad, or else they would be called trash in the future. She took a deep breath, turned around, and headed forward. When Si Ting arrived at the eye of the array, he realized that there was no one there. He heaved a silent sigh of relief. It seemed that no one was ahead of him. But then he suddenly frowned. Why would he be worried that someone would beat him to it? He had absolute confidence in himself and had never felt like this before. What was wrong with him today? Could it be because of what Chu Luiwei said? Si Ting clenched his fists tightly. In fact, he did feel a dangerous aura from Chu Luiwei. He did not know where this feeling came from, but his intuition told him that Chu Luiwei was definitely not a simple person. Fortunately, he was the first to reach the eye of the formation. As long as he reached this point, the competition was basically over. Si Ting waved his hand, and a silver line flew out. It formed a strange pattern in midair. After a while, the silver line shook violently and then disappeared. Si Ting looked in the direction that the line had pointed to and was about to walk in that direction. Just as he moved, he heard footsteps behind him. Almost instinctively, he turned his head to look. A slender and tall girl's figure came into view. Chu Luiwei looked up, and their eyes met. She smiled and shrugged. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.